Welcome to the club. Hello, everyone. And today, the episode is going to be a little bit different than we usually have. We haven't chosen yet a new book and decided to talk a little bit about our habits of reading. This is going to be the first part of this episode, and at the end of the episode we're going to play a game connected with the vocabulary that we covered in previous books. And when we're going to start, we're going to explain a little bit more about the rules. Let's start with something like reading physical or electronic books. So what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of reading physical books versus ebooks?
Well, of course, I prefer reading physical books just because it's kind of special atmosphere that I like. I like the feeling of the book. I like turning the pages and
the smell.
Yes, sometimes the smell, but not always.
Not always.
Because nowadays books are different and some of them really have this smell typical for books, but some of them just strange. Yeah, I like it, but sometimes of course it is better to read ebook. For example, if you are not sure that you will like this book or not, you can try at least. Even if you can't find it for free, you can pay less money, download it from some online libraries.
Yes,
so it is cheaper.
Yes.
Sometimes I read electronic books even if I have the physical version of the book, just because it's not very convenient to take the book with me and read it in other places, not at home. And it's better to do it on the phone or on the tablet. But again, for example, I have the book, The Lord of the Rings, and it is so thick because the 3 books are in one. I can't take it with me. So I can't read it anywhere else but my home. That's why I'm still reading the second book. The problem is that I can't find the translation that I want. So because there are so many translations and I chose the best one for me, at least, and I bought this book, but I can't find it for free and I do not want to pay. Probably I can find it in some online libraries, but I don't want to pay just because I paid. I already paid for it. So this is a problem for me because I need to read another translation or just take this huge book with me.
Frankly speaking, I agree with everything you said. So on the one hand, when we read physical books, it adds to the atmosphere and to the vibe of the story because you touch physically the story, so to say, because you feel the pages, you see the books printed, and you understand how much time and work was put into this book, into creating of this physical object. I also agree that I like ebooks. I think it is very convenient because you can take wherever you go any amount of books you want. They don't weigh anything and the cost is going to be less. Do you have many physical books?
Yes, I do. So first of all books my father has are at my home. And yeah, so it is a huge library. But I think that the majority of these books are Russian literature. And I prefer foreign literature. That's why I keep on buying books. And I have my own small library. It is also quite big because I do not have shelves. And now I'm trying to get rid of some books that I don't need and I want to reread them.
At my place, there are not many books. I mean, of course, Harry Potter, of course, Twilight. There are. But most of my books are kept at my parents' house because they have more space for it. I don't know why, but lately I think I bought only the books that we had to read for our book club. Otherwise, I prefer not to buy them because I'm afraid that I might not like the book. And if I read the ebook and I like it and I think that it should be a part of my collection, then I buy it in physical.
one more thing why I prefer physical books is that psychologically it is more comfortable for me to read these types of book, just because I love long books, I love thick books, so it's not a problem for me. So when I see a huge story, it's okay if I like the story. But sometimes I can have a book, for example, it has 500 pages. So the physical book has 500 pages, but the ebook has 3,000 plus pages. And it's not my phone, it is on my tablet. So my tablet is quite big actually. And I don't know why it happens this way. And when I see that I need to read 3,000 pages, I think, maybe I'm not going to do that.
It's scary to start.
Yes, just because I'm afraid that I will stop and I will lose the interest, and just because I always see this number at the bottom of the page.
When you see that the story is very big and the number of pages is very big, you are afraid that you really can stop at some point. And in fact, of course, when we stop reading the book at some point, it seems that it was a waste of time, the time you spent on reading half of it or some part of it. Yeah. Let's move to the next topic. So how has technology such as e-readers and audiobooks changed the way we consume literature? What do you think?
Well, I think it changed it
drastically.
Quite drastically, yes. But for me, it's not a big difference. So as I said, sometimes it's more convenient, but I'm not a fan of audiobooks. I don't like fiction literature in audiobooks. For me, I think that almost no changes, just the convenience.
I think I started to listen to audiobooks when I was somewhere in the middle of the university. I think it was on the third course when we had the foreign literature course, because I'm a slow reader, a very slow reader. I mean, even if I like the story and I'm interested and I try to spend as much time reading as I could, still I read quite slow. Due to the fact that we had to read quite a lot of books at that time, I tried to read some books in physical versions and some books I tried to listen in audiobooks, in audio version. For example, when I drive or something like that, because at that time I already drove, and at that times there wasn't as many audiobooks as these days, of course. That's why I I bought it on CDs, and I have a CD player in my car. That's why I tried to listen. And when I started to use this kind of format, it was very strange. It was kind of difficult to focus my attention on the events and to grasp the meaning of what is read to me, because when someone read to us the last time, I mean, maybe somewhere when we very little children and our parents read something to us, and after that, no one read to us. At those times, it was very difficult for me. But these days, I don't know why, but maybe when I started to get preparing for the quizzes about Harry Potter and Twilight, I started to listen to the books again. And these days I listen to quite a lot of books, and I'm happy because there is such a format, and it helps me to read the books I wanted to read, but I didn't have time. Because whenever I start reading the books, it's usually evening. Physical books. It's usually evening. I'm usually tired and my eyes hurt and something like that. These days I can turn on the audiobook in my headphones and do something around my home while listening to the book. That's why I'm glad. And these days it's much easier for me to consume this kind of format.
Well, sometimes I can listen to audiobooks, and I like that we have this opportunity because it's really very convenient when you do some other things and at the same time you can listen to a story. I listen to non-fiction books sometimes just because, as you said, I also have this problem with focusing my attention on events. And when I listen to nonfiction, it's okay, just because if I skip some part of information, so it's not a problem for me, because I still can understand the meaning. But as for fiction, I don't like it, because I tried to listen and I didn't like it at all. The only fiction book I listened to, I think, was Harry Potter, just because I read it 3 times before, and in Russian and in English, and I knew the plot, and it was okay if I skipped some parts. I still read them, so I didn't skip them.
Still, about the changes, I also would like to add that maybe I started to feel okay listening to the books, because before that I started to listen to a lot of the podcasts. And maybe because of this experience, it also helped me to switch to the audio format, and it kind of like grew on me. Do you prefer to read books in their original language, or do you opt for translated versions, and why?
Surprisingly, I opt for the translated versions. I have only one reason for that, just because it is quicker.
Of course.
Because I can read in English, and I really like reading in English, but it takes so much time. So I think that I read 5 times faster in Russian than in English. And of course, if I read the books only in the original, so it will be maybe 3
books a year.
From 3 to 5 books a year, yes. And with Russian books, the situation is much better. So I can read about 20 or 30 books, and it's okay for me. But I really enjoy when I have time, and when I spend some effort. And yes, when I read the original books.
Was it difficult for you to start reading books in English? Like, for example, when you studied at the university and you had that course of foreign literature?
I don't remember, because at school, I had a lot of English classes, and we read a lot. So I started reading in English at school, and we have, I think, that were like adapted versions of some books. And probably we started reading that time. I remember, I still have this book, so I remember I have Hamlet, like the short version, and with easy words, of course. Also something about history of England, but the level was like B1 probably, maybe even A2, I don't remember. It was okay, but then I was so interested in reading, and I was interested in English, so somehow I started to read the not adapted versions, and it was okay. So I can't say that it was a big problem. But of course, sometimes I opened the book and I understood that I couldn't read, just because I had a lot of words that I didn't know. For example, this happened with iRobot, because it was years ago, and probably I was still at university when I got this book. And it was difficult for me, but this time I read it. Of course, there were a lot of words, a lot of expressions, but I could just ignore them, to be honest. And I still got the meaning. So.
Yes.
And at university, we read something, but the only problem I remember is with analyzing the text, not with just reading and getting the meaning. It was okay. But analyzing was a bit difficult, because sometimes, I hate literature subject, just because all the teachers ask, like, what does the author mean? I have no idea what he or she means. If I can give you my opinion on that, it's okay, so I can share with you my thoughts, but I have no idea what he or she meant. And that's why I do not like it, and I don't like analyzing it from this point of view.
I think that you would understand, for example, with the Dandelion Wine that we read last time, that when you read the biography of the author and you know his background, it's easier to understand what he wrote, and maybe why he wrote, and maybe what events of his life influenced him in writing this or that book. And especially when we had this foreign literature, I hated that additionally to the books we had to read a lot of information about the authors to understand the book better. But of course, this is the key. And whenever I like the book, of course, I go to read information about the author because it's interesting to know.
Yeah.
And also for me, it was very, very, very difficult to start reading books in the original. And I kind of like suffered during the first times of reading books in the original. I intentionally opened the book in Russian and just read the parts that I didn't understand and the parts that didn't make sense for me at all, because there was some kind of like different phrases, different idioms that I couldn't understand what the author meant. And when I read in Russian, I kind of like, okay. And it took me quite a long time. I mean, maybe like 2 courses during the university that I started to read the book without reading additionally the Russian version. At my school time, I wasn't exposed to English too much, and I didn't read like books or even maybe short stories in English. I've only had my like book for studying English, and that's it. That's why maybe at the university it was very difficult for me to switch to the original language.
I don't remember that we spent a lot of time on biography of the authors. Of course, we studied their biographies, but not so much time probably. But now I really enjoy reading stories about this or that author, and I found a wonderful channel. So it's in Russian, but still I enjoy it a lot. It's about biographies of different famous people, not only the authors and the writers, but just some musicians and other famous people. And I really enjoy it just because all these people have their unique story and we can understand maybe why they decided to choose this path and how they did all that they did, how they got everything that they have in their life. So it is amazing. I love reading biographies now.
I think it's also one of the reasons why it is very popular these days that they film the movies about some celebrities and about their biographies. How do you decide which book to read next? Do you follow recommendations, bestseller lists, or something else? And have you ever abandoned a book halfway though? What makes you give up on a book?
How do I choose the book? For me, it is quite difficult to choose what I'm going to read next, just because I have a long list.
A huge one.
Yes, a huge list of the books I want to read. Well, how they appear in this list, I don't know. I can't answer this question. I just think of some kind of book. Maybe I can see it when I'm at the bookshop or when I'm just surfing the internet. I follow some bookshops and some book bloggers, and they just mention something, and usually it's classic literature, and I think, okay, maybe I should read this book. And then I have a huge list, and usually I decide, I think about the type of the book and the genre. So what do I want to read? Sometimes it's a detective story, sometimes it is maybe one of the top stories of all times that I haven't read yet. And I just decide that I will read this book. And what else?
Have you ever abandoned?
Of course I have. It happens to me quite often. And as you said, for me, it is really a disaster, because when I stop reading the book, I really regret about my time, and I try to finish it even if I don't like it. Not because to say that I did it, yes, and I'm proud of myself. Not. The main reason is that I want to look at the whole story, like to look at the story as a whole, not just a part of it. Maybe it will get better, or maybe it won't get better, but still I will know the story and I will be able to make my own opinion about this story. That's why I still try to finish the books. But of course, I have some books that I've abandoned, and probably the majority of them are nonfiction because it's not my genre. Even though sometimes I really love books of this genre, but not always. And here I have no regrets. So if I don't like it, okay. So it's just not my book. But as for fiction, yes, especially if it is something classical, and I know that a lot of people love this story, and I just wanted to understand why, what they all found in it, I try to finish it. As for examples, probably the first thing that comes to my mind is American Tragedy. I abandoned this book, and it was, I think that I didn't read maybe 100 pages, and this book is huge, so it's like 1/6 part of the book. So I read the fifth parts, but I didn't finish it. It is because I hated the main character, and he was such a bad person that I just couldn't sympathize. I could sympathize to some people in this story, but a lot of information, a lot of time was devoted to him, and I just couldn't finish it because I hated him.
Have you watched American Psychopath? I watched it because Christian Bale is in there, but it is such a difficult film and movie for me. It's especially because the main character is the psychopath. Indeed. And I heard that these days, this character became once again very much popular amongst the young people in America, and they try to imitate him. And I'm like, what? Really? What? And I agree that for me also it's very difficult to read books if I don't like any character in it. For example, this is the situation with Wuthering Heights.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
but you finished it.
I finished it too. But recently I reread the summary of this book, and I was like, yeah, how I hated everyone there, and I just didn't understand everyone, and I don't understand why people like it, and who they like, and for what in this book. Have you read all the books from that famous list by our teacher that we had during the foreign literature course?
Of course, not all the books, but I read most of the books there, and I enjoyed this list because it was American and English literature, like my favorite. But I didn't read the controversial books. So the most controversial,
for example,
James Joyce books. Some other books, well, I don't remember, but there were a couple of books there that I would probably not like.
I think I mentioned it to you about James Joyce and about his Ulysses, that there was a whole group of enthusiasts who analyzed this book like for a couple of decades, and at the end they said that there is nothing in this book, and those who see something in this book, they are kind of like wrong or something like that. And I'm like, I agree with you people. Frankly speaking, I haven't read most of the books from this list. I think we're going to share this book to give you.
I think that she had different lists for different groups because we were linguists, and she also taught for journalists and some other students. That's why she definitely had.
But some kind of list we're going to find and post in our Telegram. Yes, we're going to share it with you. That's why please join our Telegram channel.
I just remembered of some other examples.
Okay.
The books that I didn't finish. So I bought a book. It's called Lethal White by Joanne Rowling. Well, actually, it was published by her pen name, Robert Gilbert. And I've already read one book by her in this cycle, in this series of books. I managed to do it. I'm proud of myself. But, well, speaking of that book, it was difficult. But I liked the detective story. The detective story was really nice, and I liked the ending because it was unpredictable, and I enjoyed it a lot. But I do not like characters there, and I hate the love line there. It is awful. I'm sorry. So much as I love John Rowling, I still can say that I hate this part in her books. Well, not in Harry Potter, but in other books. And the same situation with Little White. I'm not sure about the detective part because I read only about 100 pages, and the book is also quite long, about 600 pages. Maybe the detective story would be okay again this time, but again, some problems with character and their love line because they are all grown up, like they are 30 and 40 years old, but they behave like teenagers, and I just don't like looking at this and reading this. That's why I abandoned this book, and I'm not sure that I will go back. Well, I want to do it, and I started reading it again this summer, but I again abandoned it. Just because I switched to another book that was interesting and that was easy to read. That's why I just, okay, maybe not this time, sometime later. And one more example, it was Russian literature, the book by Dostoevsky, The Brothers Karamazov. The problem here is different. I love the story, well, the beginning of the story, because I don't know the whole story, and I didn't read anything about it, not to spoil the joy. And I really love his way of writing, even though it is very old and ancient, and sometimes I do not understand the words, yes, even though they are in Russian. But I still like Google things that I find there. And I really love the style, I love the characters, I love how he describes them. But, well, if you read Dostoevsky, you know that he is a very religious person. Sometimes he can describe some religious things. I don't know how to call them. 4 pages. And it is so difficult to read for me because I do not understand anything in religion.
Me too.
I can't say that it makes me angry, but I just start falling asleep.
It makes me confused.
Yes.
In the first place.
Yes, so I just want to sleep when I start reading these religious parts. In some of his books, it's not that obvious and it's not that profound, so to say. But in this book, there is a character, some kind of monk. And when he describes this character, it is for
ages.
5 pages in a row, and I just can't get through them. That's why I abandoned this book the first time I started reading it. And now, again, it's the second time I started to read this book, but I hope that I will manage. Because I'm really interested in the story, and I'm really interested in works of Dostoevsky because I'm a fan of his style. I can't say that I read a lot by him, but I read a lot about him and about his books. I really enjoyed his biography. I think that I watched videos about him for 3 times, like the same videos for 3 times. It was not just one video, and I also read a lot about his biography, and it is a very unique person for Russian literature, in my opinion. Yes, that's why I want to read more books by him, but it is difficult for me.
I don't know, maybe people are going to hate me for saying this, but I can't name not even one Russian author that I like. I'm sorry. I think it was because during my school days, I wasn't a fan of reading at all, but I was made to read those strange stories that I didn't understand almost at all, and I was made to analyze them and to write like essays on them, and I hated that for sure. And maybe because of that experience, again, I became a slow reader because I tried to read as slow as possible. And for example, The Master and Margaret, I remember I read this book till the end only because at one day I fought with my mom so much, and she just closed me in my room, and I had nothing to do but to read this book till the end. And I don't understand why people like it. For example, my friend from the school, she reread this book for several times and she admired it. I don't understand. I don't see anything in that book. And for example, War and Peace, at school I read maybe only 1/3 of this book, and I couldn't continue. And till these days, I can't read it. I only watched the BBC adaptation, and I liked the BBC adaptation, but I still don't understand why people worship Natasha Rostova. I don't see anything in this character. Anything. Bolkonsky, yes. Bolkonsky, yes. And for example, about how people choose books. So, for example, when we study at school, we are told what books we need to read. And I think during those days, most people start to like something, and basing on this book, they try to find something that is going to be similar. And we start to form our list of the books we want to read. And these days, of course, thanks to the internet, we have like millions of those lists that we can go and ask. For example, I like Harry Potter. What should I read more after I read Harry Potter? And for me, most of the times, unfortunately for me, those lists don't work. I mean, for example, when I finished reading Harry Potter and asked the internet what should I read further that is going to be similar, I found a suggestion about Percy Jackson, and I read those books, and they're not bad, but they're not as good as Harry Potter. And these days, I listen to Philip Pullman's Dark Materials. It is a trilogy, and this trilogy appears in so many lists of the books that are recommended to read to Harry Potter fans. This morning I finished listening to the second book, and frankly speaking, when I listened to the first book, I thought that I'm going to stop on it. But then I continued somehow, and the second book got a little bit better, but still very difficult to perceive. And also there are not many characters that I like in that book. The main character from the first book is a girl. The additional main character from the second book is a boy. And I don't like both of these characters. I mean, to some degree, yes, but not that much. Again, there are a lot of allusions to religion, and also I don't like this part. I'm going to listen to the third book, yes, till the end, just to find out the end of the story. But as for me, I'm not going to recommend it to Harry Potter fans for sure. And I don't know why this trilogy is so popular, because I mentioned to you that, for example, this trilogy is on the 3rd place in a list of BBC books of like greatest of all times or something like that. And I was surprised by this fact. And have I ever abandoned a book halfway? Of course, I think. But as for now, I can't say which one, because usually, again, I try to read it till the end, even if I don't like it, just to find out what is going to be in the end. And that's it. I think it happened not with the books, but with the TV series. I abandoned TV series because I just hated spending so much time on something that I don't enjoy, because I have maybe a bigger list of TV series that I want to watch in comparison with what I want to read. let's move to the game we prepared. So the rules are going to be as follows. With these cards, we prepared the vocabulary, all the phrases and words that we covered or mentioned while reading all the previous books, starting with iRobot. The white ones I prepared for Olga because it's her vocabulary that she didn't revise. And the pink ones are Olga's cards that she prepared for me with the vocabulary I mentioned in our episodes. And the rules are, we're going to take one card and read the phrase or the word, and we are going to get 1 point if we remember from what book this vocabulary is, and 1 point if we are going to remember what it means, the explanation. So I think we're going to get 10 cards each, and so maximum we can have 20 points. Would you like to start?
Okay, I will have 0 points.
Me too, I think. It's going to be a fun.
Begrudge.
Yes.
I don't remember. Well, as for the story, let it be To Kill a Mockingbird, but I'm not sure. It can be any story, actually.
Yes, it's from To Kill a Mockingbird. Would you try to guess the meaning? Okay, so the meaning is to feel unhappy because someone has something that you think they do not deserve. Okay, so still you get 1 point.
Yes. So,
okay, my turn. An entail. I think this is from Pride and Prejudice.
Yep.
It's from Pride and Prejudice, and I think the meaning is something connected with how a person can get some property. So, for example, Jane and Eliza tried to explain to their mother that because their father didn't have a son, they couldn't entail their house.
Yeah, you're right. So it's to create a legal condition that property can only be passed to particular people.
Okay, continue.
Sit a spell or set a spell. If it is a spell, maybe it is House Moving Castle.
No, it's not from House Moving Castle.
Then it is Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes, it's Kill a Mockingbird. Do you remember the meaning?
Something like say the word or something. I don't remember.
No.
So maybe about opinion, no?
No. To sit down for a period of time, especially in the company of other people, in order to relax.
Okay.
Put on airs. It's not Pride and Prejudice. It's whether House Moving Castle or maybe iRobot. No? To Kill a Mockingbird. And the meaning, maybe to pretend that you are not afraid or something like that? No? Okay, what?
To act in a way that shows one thinks one is better than other people.
Okay, so I have 0 point for this one, okay?
Jim Dandy. I have no idea. Maybe it is Pride and Prejudice, but I don't remember them.
This is again from To Kill a Mockingbird. This is an excellent or very pleasing person or thing. Out of kilter. I think this is from iRobot.
Yes.
The meaning, something connected with working not properly? No?
Yes. Used to describe something that is not in the exactly right position or condition or is not working in the usual or proper way.
Do I get 2 points?
Yes. Extort. It was from one of the last books. Probably it was Pride and Prejudice. Because it is one of the last books.
Yes, it's from Pride and Prejudice.
I remember that it is something like to get information using some efforts.
Yes.
So when someone is not willing to give you the information.
To get something by force or threats or with difficulty. Great.
Okay,
2 points. 2 points.
Please something.
Run in the family. I think this is from To Kill a Mockingbird. It was about their mother and her illness. So it is something that is kind of like a feature or a trait or some illness that is like passed in the family line.
Let.
It's easy. Yes?
No.
It's easy.
It was To Kill a Mockingbird again?
No.
Then it was House Moving Castle.
No.
Pride and Prejudice.
Yes, it was your first word in the Pride and
Yes,
Prejudice.
I remember. I remember that it was my first one, but I remember that it was about Mrs. Bennet. So she said something about yes, to rent.
Yes, to rent. Higgledy-piggledy. It's, of course, from Howl's Moving Castle. But the meaning, it's whether in several directions at once, or it's whether then in very bad order.
Yeah, lacking in order or neatness.
Yeah.
Or cleanness. To pry around. Maybe it's iRobot. Dandelion white? But then no ideas.
To investigate something by asking lots of questions. Cantankerous. I think it's from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes.
And it was connected with that lady, the old lady who died and whose flowers gem destroyed. Something connected with the character of a person. Something like being very displeased with everything.
Kind of, yes. So it's bad-tempered.
Bad-tempered, yes.
To hoodwink, no ideas. Even the story, I have no idea because I have no idea what it means.
Okay, so this is from iRobot, and it means to deceive or trick.
Okay.
Jilt. Is it from Dandelion Wine? No?
No.
Then I don't remember anything.
Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice.
Means to suddenly reject or abandon, to play into someone's hands. Again, it can be any story. Maybe Pride and Prejudice.
No.
Then to something earlier. Not Howl's Moving Castle.
No.
iRobot?
Yes.
Okay. Probably something that suits another person.
To do something that one does not realize will hurt oneself and help someone else. To be up to the eyebrows in something. Is it iRobot?
Yes, that's iRobot.
To be deep in a bad situation.
Too general.
Something like to be overwhelmed with some business, some things, very busy.
Something like that. To have more of something than you can deal with. To pound something up. Let it be iRobot.
This is iRobot.
Maybe to get rid of something.
To sell or dispose of something by misrepresentation or fraud. Or persuade someone to accept something by deception. Nitwit. Is it from iRobot? Nitwit. Something maybe to call someone a fool.
I think I will have the last one. In lieu of, I remember the meaning, probably it was Pride and Prejudice instead of.
In lieu of, this is from Pride and Prejudice, yes. Instead of, in place of. Good. My last one. Snipe hunt.
Oh. I just remember that the explanation there was that big because I deleted it when I printed.
I remember this is from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
And it means to send someone to look for something that it doesn't exist. So kind of like to deceive and so on and so forth. Okay, guys, thanks for watching this episode. I think sometime later we're going to have kind of like the same episode discussing something that is just connected with the books, but still we hope you liked this episode and the game. And if you have any suggestions what book we might read in the future, please write in the comments your suggestions, and please subscribe to our VK and our Telegram channel. And till next time, see you. Bye bye. How many? Any number. And again, while the our
one of them, well, one is better. Сейчас. загрузится.
Давай.
Я просто не помню по-английски, как она называется.
Кто?
«Смертельная белизна». Это Джоан Роулинг. Блин.
Джоан Роулинг?
Да. Сейчас скажу.
Давай.
Как он там сейчас? Роберт Гилбрейт. Она называется The Brothers Karamazov. Я просто думала, что типа Karamazov Brothers. Но да. They describe him, how he describes him, how he describes them.
Нормально.
Наконец-то. I don't know how to say this in English, because in Russian it is starets. No one knows.
The wise one.
Yes.
So, for example, the main character from the first book and the second main character from the. Okay. Yes, I remember something. 2 points. Okay, my next one is going to be. Сейчас. Закрыла глаза, я ничего не вижу.